She lost an eye in battle. Then she forced the Emperor of Rome to the negotiating table. Her name was Amanirenas, the one-eyed Kandake who buried Augustus's bronze head beneath her temple steps. And they erased her from every history book. The Roman Empire, a military machine that measured its power in shattered kingdoms and toppled civilizations. At its height, Rome believed itself invincible, its expansion limitless. But when its legions pushed south, deep into the heart of Africa, they met a force they did not understand. They met the armies of the kingdom of Kush. And they met a warrior queen who refused to bow. A queen who would lose an eye in the heat of battle and still drag the Emperor of Rome to the negotiating table. Her name was Amanirenas, the one-eyed Kandake who made the world's greatest superpower back down. Long before Roman sandals touched the sands of North Africa, a powerful civilization thrived along the Nile. This was the kingdom of Kush, in what is now Sudan. For millennia, Kush was a beacon of African power, a rival to its northern neighbor, Egypt. In fact, Kushite kings had once conquered Egypt, ruling as the famed Black Pharaohs of the 25th dynasty. But Kush had a tradition that set it apart. While other empires relegated women to the shadows, Kush was often ruled by a line of formidable queens. They held the title of Kandake, a word so synonymous with power that Roman writers mistook it for a name. The Kandakes were not consorts or regents. They were absolute monarchs. They led armies, built pyramids, and held ultimate political and spiritual authority. The title meant great woman, and succession often passed through the female line. They were warrior priestesses, divine mothers of the nation. Into this world, around the middle of the 1st century BCE, came Amanirenas. She ruled from the city of Meroe, a metropolis famous for its steep pyramids and its mastery of iron. She commanded a kingdom whose archers were so feared, their homeland was known as Ta Seti, the land of the bow. But a shadow was stretching from the north. In 30 BCE, after the defeat of Cleopatra, Egypt fell. It was now a Roman province. Emperor Augustus, Rome's first and most ambitious emperor, was on Kush's doorstep. The stage was set for a clash between the masters of the Mediterranean and the indomitable queens of Nubia. Rome's arrival was an act of aggression. The new Roman governor, Gaius Cornelius Gallus, pushed his forces south, annexing a strip of Kushite land. This was a violation of their sovereignty. Then came the insult that lit the fuse. Rome imposed a humiliating tax, treating the proud kingdom as mere subjects to be plundered. For Kandake Amanirenas, this could not stand. Her husband, King Teretekas, had recently died, leaving her the sole defender of her people. The Romans, arrogant after their swift conquest of Egypt, had made a critical error. They drew down their forces for a campaign in Arabia, leaving their new border exposed. Seeing her chance, Amanirenas made a decision that would stun the Roman world. She would not wait for them to attack. She would strike first. In 24 BCE, she mobilized a formidable army, said to number 30,000 Kushite soldiers. The famed archers of Ta Seti marched north with her queen and her son, Prince Akinadad. The offensive was a shock. The Kushite army overwhelmed the unprepared Roman garrisons, taking 3 major cities, Syene, Philae, and Elephantine. The attack was swift, devastating, and designed to send a message. As her warriors sacked the cities, they tore down the statues of Emperor Augustus. And in a final, audacious act of defiance, they severed the bronze head from one of these statues. Back in her capital, Amanirenas had the head buried beneath the steps of a temple. For years, anyone entering the temple would symbolically trample on the image of the Roman emperor. This was psychological warfare. This was deliberate humiliation. They never taught you this in school. Why? The message was clear: Kush would not be conquered. Rome had been challenged. News of the invasion sent shockwaves through the empire. An African queen had desecrated the image of the divine emperor. For Augustus, this was a personal embarrassment. Vengeance would be swift and brutal. He sent a new governor, Gaius Petronius, with one order: crush the rebellion. Petronius assembled a force of 10,000 Roman legionaries. Though likely outnumbered, his men were part of the most disciplined fighting machine on earth. With contempt, the Romans dismissed their enemy as the one-eyed Candace. The historian Strabo noted she was a masculine sort of woman and blind in one eye, an injury perhaps earned in a prior battle that the Romans saw as a weakness. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Petronius marched south. The Roman counterattack was overwhelming. He retook the captured cities and pushed deep into Kush. Determined to make an example of the kingdom, he advanced on the city of Napata. Amanirenas sent envoys offering to return the captives. Petronius ignored them. He razed Napata to the ground and enslaved thousands. The Romans declared victory, believing they had broken the kingdom. But they had not captured the Candace. Amanirenas had lured them in, sacrificing a secondary city to draw the Roman army deep into her territory, far from her true capital of Meroe. The war was not over. The sack of Napata and the loss of her eye in one of the ferocious battles did not break Amanirenas. It forged her resolve into something harder than steel. She launched a second wave of attacks, proving to Petronius that this was not a leader who would surrender. This was a war Rome could not easily win. Amanirenas understood she could not defeat the full might of Rome in open battle. So she changed the rules. She shifted her strategy to a war of attrition, a guerrilla campaign fought in the harsh Nubian terrain she knew so well. The war, which dragged on for nearly 3 years, became a living hell for the Roman soldiers. They were bled slowly by an enemy they could not find. Her warriors would strike at supply lines, ambush patrols, and vanish back into the desert before the legions could respond. Amanirenas' forces were everywhere and nowhere. The cost was immense. Amanirenas suffered a devastating personal tragedy when her son, Prince Akinadad, was killed in the fighting. Yet even this did not stop her. Her resilience was absolute. Every Roman attempt to pacify the region was met with another ferocious assault. Augustus was faced with an impossible choice: commit endless resources to a bloody quagmire at the edge of his empire, or admit this was a war he could not win. The price of conquering Kush was too high. By 22 BCE, a stalemate was reached. The Romans could destroy Kushite cities, but they could not subdue the Kushite people. Amanirenas had proven she could make the cost of occupation unbearable. In a final brilliant strategic move, she dispatched her own ambassadors, not to the local governor, but directly to Emperor Augustus himself on the Greek island of Samos. They did not arrive as supplicants. They came as representatives of an undefeated nation. What happened next was almost unprecedented in Roman history. Augustus, a pragmatist who understood the folly of a forever war on a distant frontier, listened. The terms of the peace agreement they forged were astonishing. First, Augustus agreed to a complete withdrawal of all Roman forces from all contested Kushite territories. Second, and most importantly, he canceled the taxes that had started the war. The kingdom of Kush would pay no tribute to Rome. This was a settlement between two powers. Amanirenas had not just fought the Roman Empire to a standstill, she had forced it to grant her every major concession. The war was over, and by any measure, the one-eyed Kandake had won. Her kingdom's independence was secure. Queen Amanirenas died around 10 BCE. The peace she won held for generations, creating a stable border and allowing her successors to rebuild and usher in an era of great prosperity. Her story is a testament to what is possible. In an age dominated by empires and men, she stood as a giant. She led from the front, absorbed horrific personal loss, and outmaneuvered the greatest superpower of her day. While other leaders who defied Rome were ultimately crushed, Amanirenas forced the emperor to make peace. Her legacy challenges the narratives of history that have buried African achievements and the power of its women. They called her a barbarian, a one-eyed woman. But Amanirenas was a master of tactics, a queen who shook the foundations of empire. She protected her people, preserved her kingdom, and proved that the Kandakes of Kush would bow to no one. Rome conquered Gaul. Rome conquered Britain. Rome conquered Egypt. But Rome could not conquer Kush. And they buried this story for 2,000 years. If this is the first time you are hearing the full story of Queen Amanirenas, that is not an accident. The histories of Africa's great rulers have been buried for centuries, but we are digging them up. Subscribe for more stories of the figures who defied empires and shaped our world. Let us know in the comments which other historical warrior you'd like to see covered next.